This is Hannibal here from the Hannibal TV.com, and today we have one of the most recognizable referees in WWE history. He was with the company a long time, still with the company in a way, even though he works for Sportsnet, I believe, doing the Aftermath show here in Canada. None other than Jimmy Korderas. How are you doing today, sir?
I'm good. I'm good. It's nice to be kind of affiliated, but not really. It's more that Sportsnet is their broadcast partner up here in Canada. But to be perfectly honest, full disclosure here, although we only cover WWE programming on Aftermath, it's a Sportsnet property. It's not a WWE property. So yeah, my paycheck says Rogers on it.
Is it true that WWE owns a percentage of Sportsnet? I've heard that rumor before.
I wish I could deny or confirm, but I don't really know. And if they do have a stake in it, I don't blame them. I mean, you look at it up here. It's a business move. I don't, to be again perfectly honest, I don't believe they. But don't take my word as gospel, because when it comes to the business aspect, I leave that to them, and I just worry about trying to do my best. You know, giving. My opinions on certain things.
Now, as far as becoming a WWE official, I believe you started working for Jack Tunny back when he was still operating the Toronto territory, and that kind of transitioned into WWE. But how did you get your start with Tunney's promotion?
It's funny because I was always been a huge wrestling fan from way back in the day, because you're from Canada. So, we had a lot of promotions here. We had Maple Leaf Wrestling, but here in Toronto, we also got AWA Wrestling on Global. We got Stampede Wrestling from Calgary on the Barrie affiliate channel here. We got International Wrestling from Montreal. Saturday nights after the hockey games from the CTV affiliate in Kitchener. We'd get All-Star Wrestling from Vancouver. We got and of course, Saturday afternoons, we got Mid-Atlantic Wrestling from the Buffalo affiliates. So for me, weekends was like wrestling fest. But I started going down to Maple Leaf Gardens when I was old enough to go down and drive and that sort of thing. And, to pay for my wrestling habit, what I would do is I would take pictures at the events, and I'd come back to the next event and sell them. And there used to be a place here in Canada called Direct Film where you used to double your prints for $1. So I would keep one set for myself. I'd double the prints for $1, and I'd go to Maple Leaf Gardens and sell the other ones for $2 a pop, which basically paid for my wrestling habit. I paid for my ticket, I paid for my parking, and then one day, Elio Zarlenga, who worked for Jack Tunny, who took the pictures for his program and stuff, he caught me outside. I didn't know who he was. And he says, "Hey, can I see your pictures?" I said, "Sure, here you go." He says, "How much are they?" I said, $2 each. He says, "You can't do that." I said, "What are you talking about? I can't do that." He says, "No, it's illegal. You can't sell. These are what?" And I said, "Well, yeah, and who are you?" So he told me who he was. I went, "Oh, I'm in trouble." But he said, "You know what? I'll tell you what. Do me a favor. You take pretty good pictures, and I don't want to ruin your deal here, but just go down a little bit the street. Don't do it right in front of the building where everybody can see you." So he was pretty cool that way. We became friends, and he introduced me to Jack under the, thinking that maybe I could help him take pictures because he used to do the program.
Right.
For Maple Leaf Gardens. It was called Stranglehold back then, I believe. So he introduced me to Jack, and I met Jack, who's really cool. And he just said, "Look, don't need another photographer, but we'll find something for the kid to do." So started off as like a guy who would go up to the airport and pick somebody up and bring him down to the guard. Kind of like the I'm here to do what you need me to do. Go pick this up. Go get this guy. Go bring him here. That kind of stuff.
That's pretty cool. You get to drive the stars from the airport. That's a dream come true for a wrestling fan.
Oh, absolutely. And especially, you can only imagine the first time you get handed the keys to Jack Tunney's Fleetwood Cadillac, and he says, "Go pick up Hulk at the airport." And I'm like, "Huh? What?" You know what I mean? And now you've got to try and act cool, because you're working for Jack, but inside you're going, "Oh my God, it's Hulk Hogan in the back of the car." You know what I mean? Or Andre the Giant and Macho Man Savage and Liz. It was amazing.
How was Andre the Giant? Your experiences overall with him? The fans on this channel love hearing about him.
Oh my goodness! Once he got to know you, if he liked you, you're in. I mean, like he was, uh, and fortunately for me, Timmy White was the guy who used to travel with Andre pretty much everywhere, and I got to know Timmy very well. Timmy and I became really good friends, and he basically introduced me to Andre, and Andre was just. I, I was cool with Andre, and if you're cool with Andre, you know, you're in. And the unfortunate thing is, when you're cool with Andre, you can't escape when it comes time to having a few frosty ones in the bar afterwards. So you're kind of stuck there. And the only thing about Andre was he tended to forget that maybe you couldn't handle what he could. You know what I mean? Because he was a big guy. He can handle a lot. And sometimes he forgot that, or he was just too generous sometimes. But he was awesome. He was awesome.
Was one of your duties when you'd go out with Andre keeping the fans away from him at the bars? When he would go out, I'd imagine he'd be swarmed in some places.
It's funny because you would think that, you know, they would swarm him. And at times it did happen. But I think people were so intimidated a little bit by him that it didn't happen as much as people would think. But at the same time, when you're with him at the bar, you kind of nicely kind of tell people, you know, hey, take it easy, keep your distance. And for the most part, people were cool. You know, they were like, no, we get it. But every once in a while, you know, you get that hey, you know, the guys had a little bit too many pops. But it was few and far between. It wasn't that bad.
How long was it before they started smartening you up to the business? I imagine they didn't tell you right away that it was a show.
Yeah, it took a little while, but then I don't know if you remember, they used to do TV in Brantford, Ontario, every 3 weeks, like they do. And after a while, you know, one of my duties was myself and Elio, the guy who introduced me to Jack. We would have two like maxi vans, passenger vans, that we would take the boys from the hotel in Toronto to Brantford. You know, one would take the heels, one would take the baby faces. You know, back then, you know, we actually kept them separate. Not like today, but you know. And then after a while of driving and just waiting to do other certain duties, I was allowed to sit in the dressing room. I was allowed to sit where they did the pre-taped interviews and watch them do that, and just sit like a fly on the wall in the corner and just absorb all this. And it was so cool seeing Billy Red Lions interviewing the guys for the Canadian television, and then seeing me and Gene Okerlund doing the ones for US and international TV. And just, I started grasping it, but I wasn't fully, they didn't let me in. They were kind of allowing me to kind of see behind the curtain. It wasn't until Pat Patterson actually was the one who came up to me and started, you know, hey, you know, I'm thinking of maybe using you more because all you're doing is sitting around and wait. So he went to Jack. He was the one who went to Jack Tunny and said, listen, you know, the kid sits here, he's waiting for the show to end. Said, why don't we use him? Maybe we can make him a referee or something. And Jack was the one who said to Pat, yeah, but do you want to smarten the kid up that much? And Pat's like, well, he sits in the locker room with the boys. He's watching the interviews and stuff like that. He kind of gets what we do here. Why don't we, you know, he's here. Why don't we use him? So, you know, Jack just said, whatever you think, Pat. And Pat came up to me. He says, you know, would like to make you a referee one day. Get yourself a pair of black pants, black sneakers, a blue shirt, and a black bow tie, and carry it with you all the time. And that's all he told me. You know, and I didn't know enough to say, okay, go to the other refs and start asking questions about learning and stuff like that. You know, I kind of got what was going on, but I didn't. I mean, every time you think you know what's going on, you don't. You know, but I didn't know enough at the time to ask questions, if that makes sense.
So one day, did they just tell you, we need you in the ring, get out there?
Yeah, that's exactly what happened. We were in Newmarket, Ontario. It was a spot show up there. And Chief Jay Strongbow walks up. Chief was funny, but he just, hey, Jimmy, you got your ref stuff with you? And I said, yeah, Chief, I do. He says, well, put it on. You're reffing tonight. And I didn't want to say, but nobody's told me what to do. You know, this is the opportunity. You don't say no. I said, okay. And he said, get with SD. The match was SD Jones versus the Red Demon, who is Jose Luis Rivera. And he says, just get with them. They'll tell you what you need to know and you'll be fine. Relax. Don't get nervous. But of course, I'm nervous. So I go in, and thankfully, SD was one of the guys that I got to know very well, and we became good friends. And I said, hey, SD, guess what? He says, what? I said, I'm refereeing your match tonight. He says, awesome. I said, I've never refereed before. He says, just listen to me. I will talk you through it. And he got me through it. It was an incredible learning experience listening to him tell me, go to him, check on him, come to me, all that little things that the fans at ringside, not knowing, they think you're just communicating like ref to wrestler, that kind of stuff. But he talked me through the entire match, and it was incredible. And that's when I started thinking, okay, now I got to start talking to the other refs and finding out thing. And I started asking questions.
And you mentioned Newmarket, Ontario. The WWE used to go there. I don't think they've been there since at least the early 90s. But I think in Ontario now, they basically do Ottawa, Toronto, sometimes Kingston, sometimes Barrie. Right. How many Ontario towns did they do back in those days?
Oh, my goodness. Of course, once Cops Coliseum was built, Hamilton became a regular stop. London, I remember the old London Garden. Guelph used to get shows. They didn't go too far north, though. Very rarely.
Thunder Bay sometimes, though, right? Sometimes.
Yeah, Sudbury would be as far north as they used to go. Thunder Bay was rare, but for some reason they lump that in with Winnipeg because it's so far over there, like Western Ontario, that they thought that was more reasonable than trying to get drive over the Lake Superior the other way. But they used to run like Ottawa. We used to do Gatineau across the river. Yeah. I mean, like it was a regular stop up here. Canada was like a regular territory for WWF at the time.
Yeah, so they basically took over all of Jack Tunney's towns and some of the old Montreal territories towns, such as Gatineau. And I know they did Drummondville and Trois-Rivières and all these small towns now that they would never go to. Would you imagine that 20 years later, they would cut down their touring schedule so much?
I didn't think it would happen, but I in another sense, I understand it because it transitioned from a North American company, for lack of a better term, to a global company. So now they didn't go to Europe as well. Obviously, now with the situation with the current pandemic, obviously the travel has been restricted, but they didn't go to Europe as much. It was very special. It was like a once a year thing for 2 weeks or something like that. Now, then all of a sudden, now they're going to Australia, and now they're going to South Africa, and now they're going to the Middle East, and now there's a lot of international travel that was more rare back in the day. So I guess in their mind, it's like, well, we're going to have to sacrifice some of the small towns we used to go to these bigger venues where I'm thinking it's strictly a money thing.
Now, whenever I had WWE extra jobs or work security at events, I was shocked at first to see that the referees also built the ring and did other jobs besides refereeing. So it's not as glamorous as some people might think. What are some of the average duties of a WWE official?
No, that's exactly right. Most of us, if not all of us, well, Earl, when you get to the Earl Hebner stage, obviously, and Timmy White, you don't have to do the ring anymore, but they also did that back when they were, younger, but that was part of the deal. You set up the ring, and when you got to the venue, then you helped set up different little things, whether it's helping out with stuff in the locker room, like putting up signs and helping out whatever duties needed to be done. You're basically a jack of all trades. You were at their disposal, and they never really, overextended me personally. I can only talk for me. You know what I mean? Other guys may think that they use them a little bit too much, but you know what? I hate to sound so cliche, but when you're doing something you love, it doesn't feel like work. if that makes sense. Yes, you get tired. Yes, it takes you a toll on your body, but at the same time, it's like, man, look what I'm getting to do. You know what I mean? And you sometimes forget that, and it's happened to me where I, some days you go, oh man, and you complain about this and you complain about that. I can't believe they had me do this and whatever. And then all of a sudden you think about it and you go, but look what I'm doing, man. It's my dream job. you know, and I try to be more of a positive person by nature,
Yeah.
so, I was, man, I was fortunate. I was really lucky to be where I was.
And you talk about putting up this signs. One of the signs people always wonder about back there is the kayfabe room sign. What goes on in the famous kayfabe room?
Oh, that's just it's more where the agents and the producers all get to hang out and kind of just stay away from everybody and talk about the show and go over what's going to happen. In other words, here's what's going on tonight. You guys don't need to know until you need to know, kind of stuff. But it was more of a joke than anything. Just putting up the sign. The fun thing was the people that worked in the building that were, had access to backstage. They're saying, oh, Vince's office, oh, catering, oh, locker room, TV locker room. Kayfabe, what the heck is that? Again, that's a need to know basis. You don't need to know.
And you've refereed some of the greatest matches of all time. Shawn Michaels against The Undertaker stands out as one of them. What are some of the matches over the years that you're really proud to say that you refereed?
Oh my goodness. Taker and Edge at WrestleMania 24 stands out because I wasn't originally scheduled to referee that match. I was originally scheduled to referee I think they had the three-way ladder match or the money, whatever it was, the crazy ladder match thing going on. But a couple of weeks before WrestleMania, I found Edge in the locker room, said hello, and he says, "Hey, can we talk to you for a second?" I said, "We?" And I said, "Sure." So he walked me out and he says, Taker and I want you to referee our match at WrestleMania this year. And I said, excuse me? And he said, yeah. He said, we were talking it over and we want you to be the ref for our match. And I was like, oh my God, this is awesome, but it's not my decision. He says, oh, we made the decision. Don't worry about it. And I'm like, this is the coolest thing ever. I mean, like, and especially, coming off watching the Undertaker's documentary on WWE Network, it just, the only thing going into it was, the only thing I kept thinking was, what an honor it was, but at the same time, I want to live up to this. You know what I mean? Because as much as for me, refereeing is not about being in the spotlight. You're helping those guys tell their story in the ring. That is your job, is to help them be the connection that allows them to tell their story without being a distraction. The referee is invisible until he needs to be visible for the match. And I just wanted to do the best I could for them for that situation. But that match stands out. And there's one that I think back to a lot. It was a match on SmackDown, and it was a long match. It was like a 3 or 4 segment match between Eddie Guerrero and Kurt Angle. And just, you've been in the ring, so you know where you have those moments where everything just felt right. You know what I mean? Everything just fell into place. Everything, man, I hope I can go back and find that one day. I want to go back and find that match just to watch it because everything felt so good. And I remember after the match, just finding Eddie and just he gave me a big hug. I gave him a big hug, and I thanked him, and he said, "For what?" I said, "Man, this one I'm going to remember for a long time." I wish I could mention more, but I can go on for all day and just mention.
Oh God, I can imagine.
Yeah.
Did you ever witness any locker room fights in your days as a referee?
Not like all out brawls. I mean, like the infamous Shawn and Brett in Hartford, Connecticut. I was there, but I wasn't in the locker room. I was walking by the locker room when the Brooklyn Brawler ran out and said, "Hey, we need help in here. We got to break this up." And I'm thinking, okay, 2 of the boys are fighting. I think the boys should break this one up.
Yeah.
I don't think I'm going to be able to help too much there. I've seen a lot of heated discussions. Real brawls though in the locker room? More heated. I've seen more heated discussions than anything else. But as far as real brawls, not really. Not really.
WWE, that can cost you your job, so obviously it's going to be less common there.
Oh yeah, I mean, like and it depends on who,
Yeah,
there's
like
a bit
Brett
of a
and Sean.
hierarchy too. Yeah, Brett and Sean can get into a little. Who described it as a pinch fight? I can't remember, but they can.
Talk Man may have been one of them that said it was a hair pulling thing.
Yeah, I think he might have been in the room at the time. I don't know.
Yeah, because he was working as I think Billy Gunn's manager or something.
Right. So yeah, there are other guys who were witness to it. I wasn't a witness. I was more the aftermath of the disgruntled figures coming out of the locker room after.
And I had a few people that wanted me to ask you if JBL ever gave you any trouble because he was known to mess with some people backstage.
You know what? I never had any yeah, he was. He could be a handful backstage. He in his mind he was having fun, but it wasn't fun for the other guy. And fortunately, I wasn't one of those people that got on that got the ribbing, or as he would call it, ribbing. As a matter of fact, we became really good friends because there would be Mondays when when we had the brand split, and Raw would be on Mondays and SmackDown would be Tuesdays, and we were brand specific. I was a SmackDown guy, so sometimes on a Monday when we didn't have a house show or a live event, we would just travel to wherever the town SmackDown would be in, and he was a golf partner. We played golf, me, him, Larry Heck, the trainer, and sometimes Booker T, depending on who was available. But I was fortunate enough not to be on the receiving end of some of JBL's ribbing.
And of course, you were in the ring for the infamous Kurt Angle, Daniel Puder incident. I recently interviewed Daniel Puder about it.
Yeah.
What's your version of the events that night?
Yeah, I saw the interview, by the way. Good job. I really enjoyed it, but he got one thing a little bit wrong. Okay, I'll try to start from the beginning, but they had the guys do all these competitions throughout the day. They're trying to blow up these guys completely, like making them run wind sprints up the ramp and stuff like that, and eating plates of pasta and doing all this. And you got to give Daniel Puder credit. The guy was in shape. They just couldn't blow this guy up. So they did the contest in the ring, and I think it was Dan Rodemeyer was the guy who faced Kurt first, and that didn't last very long because Kurt just tied him up in knots, and that was it. And to be fair to Kurt, and not disrespecting Daniel Puder at all, but Kurt was not 100% at that time. He had issues with his neck and stuff like that. So that was over with, and we were done. And Charles and I are standing in the ring, and then Kurt walked over and laid out the challenge to everybody else, right? Which we thought, okay, he's just cutting his promo, doing his thing, and then Puder put his hand up, and I looked at Al Snow, who was in the ring, right? And Al looked at me and went, like Kurt's going to do what Kurt's going to do. So here comes Puder. He comes in the ring, and they start going, and I'm thinking, okay, this is getting a little intense here. And contrary to popular opinion, nobody's talking to me in my earpiece. I think they're just as surprised as everybody else because this is going on. The only thing I heard was, Jimmy, what's going on? And I did the old, I don't know. He's going into business for himself here, And I'm not an MMA expert by any means. I don't profess to be. But when he put on what I later found out was known as a key lock, I knew that the move was not good. So I'm thinking in my head the whole time that this is going on, how do we end this without making our big star look bad? That's the only thing going through my head. How do we get out of this? What do we do? What do we do? What do we do? And when they fell and Kurt fell on top of Daniel Puder, even though Daniel had him in the key lock, it just popped in my head, count. So I counted 3, but upon further review, thinking back, I not thinking, they were having an amateur type contest. I could have just counted 1 because in amateur wrestling, that's all you have to do. But I was counting 3 regardless. This thing was going to end, even though Pewter got his shoulder up after 2. I'm counting 3. I don't care. So
They didn't
got
give
up.
you any amateur wrestling training as a referee before this, I assume, right?
No, I had done a little bit in high school way back when, but you're not thinking that right now. All you're thinking of is, how do we get out of this mess we just got ourselves into? So after I counted 3, Charles looked at me and nodded. I looked at Al Snow and he nodded. And, Kurt got in Pewter's face and they had some words, which I won't repeat here. They were a little non-PG, let's put it that way. And he told him, get the F out of my ring. And he got out. And Daniel showed him the respect. The guys went to the back. I walked back to Gorilla. And Gerald Briscoe, who was manning Gorilla, just looked at me, gave me a thumbs up as I walked by, and that was it. Nobody told me to count. I know some people think that I was told to count to 3. No, it was just a reactionary thing. And then as I'm walking in the back, Fit Finley stopped me and said, who told you to count? I said, nobody. I just did it. He says, well, good. So I got praise for getting us out of that situation. And it wasn't like I was looking for praise. I was just looking to get out of there. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Do you think WWE dropped the ball by not at least doing one match with those two to at least give Kurt the win back, if nothing else? Because fans still talk about that. I think it might be 15 years later now, or 16, maybe.
Yeah. I think there was an opportunity there to, do it in a working fashion. Like, that was, again, impromptu and not a work, so to speak. It was basically a shoot. So I think, again, in our world of professional wrestling, there was an opportunity, or sports entertainment, whatever you want to refer to it as, there was an opportunity there to have something with those two, because like you said, that was ingrained in people's minds. And even the people were saying, hey, you counted 3. It wasn't 3. He got his shoulder up. There's something there. I think there was a little bit of a missed opportunity, but I think they were maybe concerned that Kurt would not be happy. And anyways, you're right, though. I think they missed an opportunity there.
Because it seems like they paid him the 1 year, $250,000. You may as well at least have the match on Raw, even in 5 minutes, get it over with, but whatever.
Yeah, exactly. Agreed.
And the other incident I'll ask you about, obviously the Owen Hart Dark Side of the Ring just came out. You were unfortunately in the ring for that. It was supposed to be The Godfather versus Owen Hart, and the incident happened. Could you just tell us your recollection of that?
Yeah, that was a tough day. I mean, like, prior to the match happening, there was a hardcore match. So there was a lot of debris in the ring and that sort of stuff. So, like I'm supposed to, I ran out there to help them clear some of the debris in the ring. And they dimmed the lights a little bit. It wasn't dark, but they dimmed the lights a little bit because they started playing a promo on the Tron there of the Blue Blazer, Owen Hart talking to Kevin Kelly, I believe it was. And while that was going on, we were somebody was sweeping stuff out. I was kicking stuff out of the ring, and I had my hand on the top rope, actually working towards that corner, kicking stuff out. And I knew that Owen was going to descend from the ceiling. And I heard a scream. I don't know. I can't say for sure who it was, but I heard somebody yelling, and I felt something brush against the right side of my head and my shoulder. And at the same time, I felt that the top rope pulled out of my hand and came back and kind of like did this, like jammed my fingers. So I ducked. My instinct was to duck. So I kind of like covered up like this, and thinking to myself that the top rope had snapped, which, it's actual rope. It can happen. And as I looked around, I looked and I said, no, the rope is still there. What the heck was that? And I turn around and Owen is laying there in the ring, like on his back. His eyes are wide open, and again, not putting everything together. I walk over and I just called out to him a couple of times with no response. And so I just started freaking out, calling for help and calling the timekeeper. Like, we need help out here. We need help out here. And I didn't want to touch him. I didn't want to move him. I didn't want to do anything. I let the, EMTs came out. Everybody came out and started looking. And it was just, I don't want to say I knew. I just knew it wasn't good. It wasn't good.
Now, this might not be the most appropriate question, but somebody wanted me to ask you if you have any idea what the finish of that match was supposed to be. Do you have any remembrance of that?
You know what? I keep going back and thinking about it, and if I'm not mistaken, I think Owen was scheduled to become the champ that night. Supposed to win. But I can't confirm that because that stuff is kind of, you know what I mean? I remember getting guys during the day, and I remember going over the match and here's what we're going to do and that stuff. But for some reason, the finish of the match, it's not there. I remember after the match, geez, I can't believe I said that. After they got Owen on the stretcher and wheeled him back, I don't know why I thought to do this, but I grabbed his cape and held his cape and followed him back. Again, not knowing why I did that, and just followed him all the way back. Somebody took it from me, and I just followed and watched them put him in the ambulance. It was rough.
Val Venus had told me earlier in the day Owen was actually planning a rib that day. When you were talking to him before the match, did he seem nervous to you, or was it just another day? Because he had done it before, I guess, with a different rigging company.
Yeah, I didn't notice anything different. Like, looking back, I could possibly say, maybe a little quieter than normal, but I didn't see any nervousness or anything like that. I didn't sense it anyways. It just seemed like another day. And, my understanding is, again, I wasn't there to see it. My understanding was that they did a trial run of the descent earlier in the day. But I wasn't there to witness it because, like we talked about earlier, as a referee, you also have other duties. So I'm running around the building doing other stuff,
And the last question I'll ask you about today, because I know you're a busy guy, but maybe we can talk to you again sometime because there's so much knowledge with your years of experience. But Steve Austin, everyone loves him on this channel. Any memories of refereeing his matches and how over he was during the Attitude Era?
Oh my goodness. It was like, when you feel somebody, you're in the ring with somebody special and you get that reaction. There's a few guys. Obviously, we mentioned Hogan. You get a Rock, and you get a Stone Cold Steve Austin, guys that you get in the ring with, and you get chills and you get goosebumps from being. It's funny. Quick story here. There was a Raw where at the end of Raw they wanted Steve to stun everybody. I mean, absolutely everybody, like Vince, Sergeant Slaughter, all the agents, whatever. And it was like, what about the refs? If the refs wanted to, he'll stun the refs too. And it was like a fight to get in there to get stunned by Stone Cold Steve Austin. That's it, you know what I mean? It was really cool. And I don't know. There are very few special athletes. I mean, you could talk about guys who are the greatest wrestlers of all time, technically speaking, in the ring, great technicians, great storytellers, but guys who connect with the audience. That's what this business is about, connecting with an audience and drawing an audience. And like those guys, like Hogan, like Rock, like Steve, those guys were special. And he belongs. I mean, you can make an argument. I know it's subjective, about the Mount Rushmore of WWF, WWE. I think he belongs on there.
Oh, I would agree with you on that. And for people that want to follow you, I know you have a Facebook page. Do you have Twitter or Instagram or anything?
Oh, yeah. Obviously, I'm on Facebook. I also have Twitter at Jimmy Korderas. And on Instagram is at Real Jimmy Korderas, because apparently somebody else is Jimmy Korderas. I didn't know there were two of us, but it's okay. But I like to have fun out there. I try, again, when I do critique the current product, it's meant not to tear it down, but to want to see better. So I do my little reffing rants that I do. That it's a minute long. It's not long. It's just a little thing that, and again, it's meant not to tear down, but to want to see better. Because it once, you know, people seem to have this thing that I don't want to see AEW succeed. That I'm anti AEW, and that's the furthest thing from the truth. Because I have friends there. You know, I actually have friends that work there, and I want to see them succeed, because if they succeed, then the business as a whole succeeds, as opposed to just one company succeeding. So again, I see little things with them that I would like to see improved, and I talk about it. That's all. And it's not like WWE doesn't do things that I would rather see them not do. They also do things that I would like to see done differently. I talk about that as well. And you can find them on my, if you want to call it, anti-social media accounts.
Are you still doing the Aftermath show?
Yeah, but we're doing it online now for now, because we can't go in studio. So basically what we're doing is Tuesdays we record 3 segments, like a win and fail, and then whatever the topic of the week is. Like this week, I'm assuming, I don't know yet, but the last ride of the Undertaker thing is probably going to be a topic. And then Fridays we go live on the Sportsnet YouTube and Facebook channels. So it's kind of cool doing it that way, because, you know, in TV land, the show is taped, right? Earlier in the day. This way we get, you know, it's live. We get to get some questions in from fans and stuff like that. And I don't know, I kind of like the live feel of it. Almost makes it feel like you're out there in front of people again.
Yeah, it's a good job for you too. It keeps you in the business without the travel.
Oh my goodness. I get asked that all the time. Do you miss? Yeah, I do miss it. Of course I miss it. But if there's the one, you know, if the one thing we could do from Star Trek that would be awesome is the teleportation, man. Like, you know what I mean? You stand in the pod and now that would be awesome. That would be a perfect world that way.
And you have a book out there too for anyone that wants to get it. I believe it's on Amazon.
Yeah, you can get it on Amazon. It's called The 3 Count: My Life in Stripes as a WWE Referee. And it's been a while, but who knows? Maybe there's a lot more in there if I could bring up the memories for a version 2, chapter, or not chapter 2, but a book 2, maybe.
Very good. And one of these days, I want to have you down to referee a Great North Wrestling event, if I can ever convince you to get back in the ring.
Oh, that's the other thing too. People don't realize that for us old fart referees, you know, the knees and the shoulder aren't what they used to be.
Well,
but you never know. You never know.
Referee is such an important part of the match. A lot of the fans might not realize it, but they can make or break a match very easily. But I really appreciate that you took the time to speak with us today, and we hope to have you on again soon. Big fan of your work as an official.
I appreciate that. Thank you, my friend. And I appreciate you thinking of me and having me on your show. And who knows, maybe Great North Wrestling, even if I don't referee, I still may come out and check you guys out, because, you know, I might be heading out towards that area later on this year. Who knows? We'll see.
Well, our referees could certainly use a good critiquing and observation.
Hey, maybe that's a direction to go. Maybe referee seminars or something like that. I don't know.
It's really needed on the independent scene, I can tell you that.
I'll take your word for it. Trust me. I will.
All right. Well, thanks again, and we'll see you on Aftermath, and good luck getting through the rest of this lockdown.
All right. Thank you, my friend, and stay safe.
Thank you for watching the Hannibal TV. Please like this video if you enjoyed it, and click the subscribe button to not miss any of our latest shoot interviews, match videos, or news updates. Support us on patreon.com for $1.99 a month to watch our full shoot interviews ad-free and help our channel grow. Follow us on Twitter at the Hannibal TV for instant updates.